soon as we get rolling.
So this will be very important because we will get a bird's eye view here, really our first bird's eye view of what it looks like from the woodlands, and then they flew west, apparently over the Katy area, which means over the Addicks and Barker Reservoir. So for all of you who are wondering what that looks like from the air, we're going to be able to see that. And also then down 59 should be down into Fort Bend County, over Sugar Land, and then into the Brazos River area where so much flooding is taking place. And so this is what things look like from the air, and this is always the best way to get a look at the way things stand right now.
So we're still waiting to... we're not seeing the video.
Here's the challenge, folks, and sometimes it's all technical. I just want to let our producers know we don't have any imagery of it here in the
Are we seeing it on air?
So
okay.
You're perhaps looking at it from home, but what we can tell you is, just like David was saying, this is taking us all the way to the woodlands, which from downtown Houston is about 25 to 30 miles, roughly.
And then we're going to get a look at Cypress Creek, the watershed there that is in record flood from all time, and then back across the Katy area to Barker and Cypress.
Right, and then down to the Brazos. That's south. We would be looking at the Richmond area there as well, the impact of the Brazos River on the different communities all along Richmond. And once again, we have subdivision after subdivision in all these different areas that are impacted.
Okay, so now we can see... this is going to be the video, and you can see just how high the water is out here as we get these aerials.
I'm guessing that this is now taking us to the Brazos River. A lot of folks have horse property.
Right. There's some farming and some ranching land out there in Fort Bend County along the Brazos River, that's for sure, and that looks like quite possibly what this is, especially since we aren't seeing homes surrounding this area. I mean, my goodness, look at all that water. It looks like almost someone took those structures and just dropped them in the middle of a lake.
As we pull out here, and now you can see the scope and the breadth of how much water. Look at that home and the barn or structure behind it, and there is very deep water. Now, hopefully these folks got adequate warning and they got out. And so we talk about the Brazos, David, because it is not going to be as bad as we thought.
Yes.
It's a relative term.
It's a relative term because what you're looking at is the Brazos at its record height that humans have ever measured. So since we've been able to take levels on the Brazos River, we have never seen it this high. We may have had times when it was higher before we were here.
Right.
But since the modern era, since we began to build and develop the area here over the past 100 years, this is as high as we have ever measured it. In some cases, this is 5 feet higher than we have ever seen the Brazos River. And so places that have, at least since humans have been there, never flooded before, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at something that we have not seen before since we've been here.
Yeah.
And again, so the aerial views are taking place. It started north in the woodlands, then west towards Katy, then south towards communities along the Brazos River. So that's the track. And David believes, just by looking at this could be closer to the Brazos River.
Just because it looks like it's horse property.
Right,
now, there is some horse property across North and West Harris County, but this looks like the Brazos.
It does, especially with those homes and what looks like the acreage that's in between all of them
Definitely
as
looks like
well.
horse farms,
Yes, and just like you were saying earlier, you hope, and I want to say we can believe here that the people who were in these homes have been evacuated.
And their animals.
And their animals, yes, too.
So even before the storm hits, the middle of last week, they were issuing flood warnings.
Right.
So there was adequate.
And there was a whole series. They had a voluntary evacuation, then they moved that up to a mandatory evacuation. And in the event of a mandatory evacuation, uniformed officers will usually go out, knock on doors, and let people know what's going on. I think we're pinpointing more specifically now where this area is. Okay, so what we're looking at here is down south of 59.
Yes, it looks like they flew from the woodlands. Perhaps they took off from the woodlands. And now what we're looking at is when they were over Fort Bend County. And this can be convinced this is the Brazos River area. And again, folks, this is happening so quickly, and we're just seeing these images for the first time. We're not able. These were taken a little more than an hour ago at 6 o'clock. And so that path took us through Fort Bend County, and that looks like rural Fort Bend County, horse property, farm
property.
property.
Look at that house. I mean, the house looks as though it was there, but not the barn there and the stables that it appears to be. Look at the trailer.
Yeah.
You only see the top of the trailer there. Just unbelievable how much water.
You can see how they attempted to build the house up on a mound.
Right.
They brought in backfill and raised the house probably above the record flood level so that they would be safe. But now we have a new record flood level. And perhaps now they'll have to build 5 feet higher. You see how they attempt? See how there's a little island around the house?
Yes.
But in this case, many of those islands have become submerged. Just incredible. And the vastness of it.
How much of this area is covered in water. I mean, it really is like someone just drops these houses, stables, and barns in a lake. You know, a huge lake, huge body of water.
It looks like the Florida Everglades. Just endless. Look at that.
Yeah. Farmland turned into swampland, lakeland, whatever you want to call it. As far as the eye can see, it stretches and stretches, and this is what we're dealing with. The highest rainfall total from a storm in the United States, probably in the modern era, we should say, right, David?
Well, this is so in our area on Marys Creek, southern Harris
It looks
County.
like we're looking at a new vantage point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but wanted to show that it looks like we had shifted areas quite possibly. Now, maybe this is because since we went from the Woodlands and then south to Fort Bend County, south of 59, and then I think the flight path that they took, they swung back up west, northwest. So,
wow, look at this.
It's just the vastness of it, the sheer number of acres that are underwater.
yes.
And it's going to be like this again. So we're at record crest right now. You're seeing it at the highest level it's ever been by several feet. We will stay in major flood conditions on the Brazos until Saturday. By Saturday evening, we should drop below major. We'll still be in flood, but then just it's lowland, and you should be able to get back in on the roads by Saturday evening and Sunday. Sunday probably is the earliest.
Okay, good. Boy, that's a lot of water that has to drain. I mean, the sheer amount of that is going to take some time, which is what you're alluding to. And David, this might sound like a silly question, but I'm sure people at home watching on their mobile devices are wondering the same thing. Where does it all drain to? Does it go back into the river? Does it go back? I mean, that's so much water. Where does it drain to?
It's all trying to get to the Gulf of Mexico. And the path of least resistance is down the river channel of the Brazos River. Now, some of this was high enough so that it probably overtopped some high spots, and you may have some pools that sit for months until they evaporate. But most of it, yes, to answer the question, it's all trying to get to the Gulf of Mexico. The path of least resistance is the Brazos River channel, so it's going to try to get back into the channel, and then that channel taking it down into the Gulf of Mexico. But with this much water, it is going to take.
And I can imagine there will be a huge backup when it all gets to that point at the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
A bottleneck, I should say, not a backup, but a bottleneck because of the sheer amount of water here.
The bulge in the river, what you're looking at is the bulge in the river. It will just follow that channel down and takes many days to push out into the Gulf of Mexico. So that's why it will drop, because it will head south eventually down the channel into toward the Gulf of Mexico.